dialogue.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's start with a check of the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump expected to push for progress in stalled Gaza ceasefire and meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today. Talks likely to also focus over Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran. US President Donald Trump says a Ukraine peace deal near after what he said were terrific talks with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky, offers to address Ukrainian parliament on plan to end the war. Taiwan condemns Chinese military drills around Taiwan that come after China issues serious warning against any push for independence. One person dead and another critical after a mid-air helicopter crash in US's New Jersey. The FAA and National Transportation Safety Board are investigating the crash. Turkish broadcaster TRT Haber reports 7 Turkish police officers were wounded during a clash with suspected Islamic State militants in Yalova province in northwest Turkey today. China's military has launched large-scale sea and air exercises around Taiwan, including blockade drills across 5 zones. Taiwan says it has deployed appropriate forces and condemned Beijing's actions as military intimidation. A special prosecutor says former South Korean First Lady Kim Kyon-hee interfered in state affairs in exchange for money and luxury goods. She denies the charges, however, with a court ruling due on January 28. An interoceanic train derailed in Osaka, killing at least 13 people and injuring nearly 100. Mexican authorities have opened an investigation as federal officials assist victims and families. And viewers, let's start with the top focus. Ukrainian President Zelenskiy is saying that European leaders and US President Trump are scheduled to meet in Washington next month. The two leaders spoke at a joint news conference after meeting at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. Both leaders reported progress on 2 of the most contentious issues in peace talks: security guarantees for Ukraine and the division of eastern Ukraine's Donbas region that Russia has sought to capture. Zelensky said an agreement on security guarantees for Ukraine has been reached, although Trump was slightly more cautious, saying that they were 95% of the way to such an agreement and that he expected European countries to take over a big part of the effort with US backing. Let's have a look at what Ukrainian President Zelensky said after Florida talks.
We discussed all the aspects of the peace framework, which includes, and we have great achievements, 20-point peace plan, 90% agreed, and US-Ukraine security guarantees, 100% agreed. US-Europe, Ukraine security guarantees, almost agreed. Military dimension, 100% agreed. Prosperity plan being finalized, and we also discussed the sequencing of the following actions. And we agree that security guarantees is the key milestone in achieving lasting peace, and our teams will continue working on all aspects. We also had a joint productive call with European leaders, like President Trump said already, and a lot of leaders, including NATO and EU. And we agreed that our teams will meet in upcoming weeks to finalize all discussed matters. And we agreed with President Trump that he will host us, and maybe in Washington, European leaders and Ukrainian delegation, yes, in January. And Ukraine is ready for peace. And once again, would like to thank President Trump for a warm welcome and substantial discussion. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right, I now request Shruti Das Gupta, who's an international affairs expert, to join me in this discussion. Shruti, very good morning to you and thank you for joining me. very crucial statements now coming in once again, although not new. This time Trump is saying 95% of the peace deal is achieved. He's also offered to address the Ukrainian parliament on ways to end the war. What do you think will be Russia's reactions?
Well, the 95% is only from the Ukrainian side. There is no confirmation of any conversation or the level of readiness for peace from the Russian side. This is how the West is preparing. This percentage number represents how the West is looking at the peace deal, not whether the peace deal between the two nations has been reached. So this is the West is 95% ready to look for peace, but not a peace deal of is ready at 95% level. So my understanding is that it is still a long way to go, because once they iron out, the European leaders along with Ukraine, along with Zelensky and Trump, and they iron out all their differences or all their compromises and stitch out a peace deal, that will then be presented to Russia. And then they will think about whether the terms presented are going to be acceptable to Putin or Kremlin as a whole. So this is just this is just optics. This is just a statement that has been given out to present that yes, there was some consequences to the meeting that has happened. There is actually very little that has been accomplished by this meeting.
Next month, when Zelensky, European Union and Trump meet, as Zelensky is indicating they would, do you expect the issue of security guarantees, if not the Donbas region, because of course that needs Russian acceptance, the issue of security guarantees for Ukraine to be addressed?
Well, from what I understand, the 20-point peace plan is pretty much sorted as far as the security guarantees are concerned. For me, the sticking points will be reparations or the money for re-establishment, and the other part will be how do I say this? The region, as we've just spoken about, the Donbas region, who controls that? There's going to be a conversation on the Zaporozhye plant, nuclear plant. And that is all how this is supposed to flow from here. These are the sticking points. They have not been talked about, and that's where the 5% or the 95% lie. And these are something that Russia draws a very hard line on. When we spoke the last time, I told you that they're putting out hooks to keep Trump and USA's interests engaged in Ukraine, because that is exactly how there will be a deterrent to Putin and their aggression. So this is the Zaporozhye plant, the region which is very rich in your mineral rich as such. So there is going to be a conversation on that between Putin.
Would you agree,
and
Shruti, that some progress may really have been made in these talks? Because there were reports that Putin and Trump had spoken right ahead of the meet with Zelensky. President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence, as he welcomed Zelensky to his Florida estate for talks on ending the war with Russia. Ukrainians showed support and solidarity to President Zelensky and appreciated Trump's effort in ending the war. Let's have a look at what the Ukrainian supporters said.
We were here to show support to President Zelensky and President Trump peace efforts. Now they are talking and discussing, trying to get on the same ground, I hope, in order to achieve peace in Ukraine. Because you can achieve peace by surrender, or you can achieve peace to push Russians back and force them to pay for all the destructions and everything what they did to Ukraine.
Peace negotiations is the process, and today is one of the steps in this process towards the goal. And the goal is just and fair peace for Ukraine.
This meeting and President Trump would hear Ukrainians and would help to stop this war on the very fair way, because Russia is a terrorist state. We believe that President Trump and his power could use his power to stop this war, but not to stop Ukraine. So he needs to stop this everyday murder which Russia does in Ukraine.
All right, and moving ahead, viewers, US President Donald Trump has congratulated The leaders of Thailand and Cambodia, after the two countries agreed to a ceasefire aimed at ending deadly border clashes. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Trump praised what he called a rapid and fair agreement, saying the outcome was fast and decisive. He added that Washington was proud to have helped facilitate the ceasefire. The agreement comes after weeks of tensions along the disputed region on the border, with clashes reportedly killing dozens on both sides. Trump also used the moment to highlight what he described as his role in resolving international conflicts. He further criticized the UN as ineffective, citing ongoing conflicts, including the war between Russia and Ukraine, as evidence of its limited impact. All right, viewers, crucial statements now coming in as far as the ceasefire on the Cambodia-Thailand conflict is concerned, with Trump saying that US has done what the UN should be doing, and the US has in fact become the United Nations. He also says the United Nations must start getting active and involved in world peace. As far as the ceasefire was concerned, he said it was fast and decisive, as these situations should be. Trump's post on Truth Social on your screens, viewers, Trump of course taking claim once again for the ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand that are engaged in a border conflict, which has displaced at least 1 million people so far and killed dozens on either sides of the border. Trump said that Washington was proud to have helped facilitate the ceasefire, and in fact this agreement comes after weeks of tension along the border. Trump also used the moment to highlight what he described as his role in resolving international conflicts. Crucial statement there coming in from US President Donald Trump, and I'd now like to welcome Satoru Nagao, who is fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining me here at NewsX World. Dr. Nagao, Trump has effectively gone on to say that the US has actually become the UN, and the UN should become more active in restoring world peace. How do you see that statement?
US and the UN is completely different. Now the UN is meaningless and the United States is still influential. And in this case, in case of the mediation, the Trump administration focusing on very much, but at the same time, in case of the Thailand and Cambodia, indeed US intervention invites China's intervention. So in case of July, the ceasefire has happened, but that time the US and China both sides joining the negotiation. But in the October, only President Trump arranged a ceasefire joint statement between Thailand and Cambodia. So China is deeply frustrated, and China pushed Cambodia to attack Thailand again. So that's why this time President Trump tried to show the very polite stance. The first time that he arranged, this time the President Trump's pressure is based on tariff. But this time he did not say the tariff-related issue, just wait and intervene and talk, and he also invites China and talk with it. And finally, the local government, Thailand and Cambodia, agree themselves the ceasefire. So that's why the view from this, President Trump's intervention is a case-by-case basis, but contributing. United Nations role is very limited, nearly nothing in this case. So that's why we do not need to worry about the United Nations, unfortunately. And in case of ASEAN, ASEAN is also the limited role this time. So that's why, indeed, this time we are talking about 4 actors: Thailand, Cambodia, and the US and China. They are the main actor to arrange Thailand and Cambodia ceasefire. So President Trump's role is still influential, but a case-by-case basis to contribute, or the polite manner is better. That is happening, I think. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Nagao, just another question with you. Although one day has passed, do you foresee the two countries restoring the ceasefire for at least 72 hours for further progress to be made thereon?
The problem itself is exists, territory issues exist, but so there is a possibility it will restart the battle. But at the same time, in case of Cambodia and Thailand, indeed the territorial issue they are competing is not so very vital for their national security for both Thailand and Cambodia. So that's why indeed the battle itself is meaningless for both of them. But this time, despite Cambodia's military is weaker than the Thailand, the Cambodia side provokes Thailand. So that's why the Thailand thinks they need to punish Cambodia. And so a certain level of punishment has happened by Air Force or naval ships, which is Cambodia do not have. So that's why Cambodia do not want to continue the battle, and Thailand has satisfied the punishment. So that's why the ceasefire has happened. So this means that certain level of the time, certain time they continue the ceasefire. There's a high possibility that, but at the same time, the territorial issue itself hasn't solved yet.
Yeah.
So that's why in the near future, maybe they will start skirmishes. That could happen, I think.
Yeah, so what's really needed then for the territorial issue to be resolved?
Of course, the territorial issues will be resolved through the negotiation and clear lines they should set up. But in case of the territorial issue, it is very difficult to set up the clear line. For example, in case of the Russia and China, what happens when the Soviet Union has collapsed and Russia is very, very, very weak, that time they agreed because China has advantage and Russia is a very disadvantaged situation. So that's why this has happened. So in case such kind of one side is very strong, another side is very weak, in this case, territorial issue could be solved in some case. But in case of Thailand and Cambodia, both sides still survive and a strong country relatively. So that's why there is a huge possibility that they can solve this just now. So territorial issue itself will continue, I think.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining me in this discussion. But I requested to stay on as we proceed ahead was, let's also tell you that key talks are expected between Trump and Netanyahu today. US President Donald Trump is expected to push for movement on the stalled Gaza ceasefire. When he meets Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the talks are expected to focus on the next phase of the Gaza truce. They will also cover Israel's security concerns over Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran. Netanyahu says Washington wants a transitional administration in Gaza that would include Palestinian technocrats and an international security force. But the ceasefire remains fragile. Israel and Hamas accuse each other of violations. Hamas has refused to disarm, while Israeli forces still control large parts of Gaza. I request Shruti Dasgupta to join me once again in this discussion here. She is an international affairs expert from New Delhi. Shruti, thank you very much for continuing to stay with us. Should we be hopeful for any real progress to be made on the Gaza ceasefire when the two leaders meet today?
I hope so, because the phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire will help Netanyahu win a little bit of approval of Trump, because that is a zone which Trump is focusing on as of now. He needs to end these two wars, which had been a major campaign factor for him. So while he's working on the Russia-Ukraine thing, he wants the Gaza peace to continue forth, and Netanyahu is key element in that. And Netanyahu wants to be in the good books of Trump, because he is looking at a March 2026 budget, and his coalition is not really very on stable ground, so he needs the approval of Trump. This might be the Gaza peace plan, the interaction with Trump might be key to his re-election soon. So this is something that we understand as analysts, and we need to show that while peace is important for the world, politicians seem to look at it as currency of whether they can actually continue forth in their political careers. So for both of them, this has different connotations rather than just peace for Gaza.
All right, sure. Thanks, Shruti, for your opinion. But there's some breaking news now coming in. I'd like to take a viewers. A deadly fire has hit a nursing home in Indonesia. At least 16 people were tragically killed on the island of Sulawesi. Local officials say the blaze broke in Manado, that is the capital of North Sulawesi province. Firefighters received the emergency call and the fire was brought under control about an hour later. 3 people were injured and are being treated for burn wounds. Authorities say an investigation is now underway. The cause of the fire is not yet known. And now moving ahead, viewers, Kosovo Prime Minister Albin Kurti has said he will swiftly form a new government after his party won half the votes in the election this week. Kurti signalled a possible end to the year-long political deadlock that has paralyzed parliament and delayed key international funding. The vote is the second this year in Kosovo after Kurti's Vetev Densok party fell short of a majority in February. Months of failed coalition talks prompted President Hoxha Osmani to dissolve parliament in November and call for an early election. Kurti's party was leading with 49.3% on the December 28 vote, with 99% of votes counted after polls closed at 7 p.m. local time. He called on members of opposition to support him in voting for international loan deals, which require a 2/3 majority to pass. The 2 main opposition parties, the Democratic Party and the Democratic League, were at 21% and at 13.6% respectively. Let's also show you a statement that has come in from Kurti.
Allow me to start by thanking citizens of Kosovo and all institutions of our independent sovereign state who organized in an exemplary way fair, democratic, free elections, and out of these elections we managed to come out victorious, even more so than in early February this year. I like to thank citizens of Kosovo, to thank also the opposition parties for their campaign, for acknowledging this time around the result of the elections, and I look forward to cooperation with opposition regarding some international agreements that are pending, and we need 2/3 majority for them, including EU growth plan, 880 million euros, 2/3 of which are loans and 1/3 are grants, then another 120 million euros from 3 agreements with World Bank.
Moving ahead to cover some news from North Korea that's just coming in. Kim Jong-un has overseen a long-range strategic cruise missile launching drill. Kim's attendance at the launch marks a surge in leadership activity designed to showcase North Korea's military and economic advancements ahead of the early 2026 Party Congress, where a new 5-year development strategy will be established. Kim has expressed his satisfaction as the cruise missiles flew along the sea of west of the Korean peninsula and hit their target. Meanwhile, Kim has observed the construction of a nuclear-powered submarine with his daughter, a possible successor, and oversaw the test firing of long-range surface-to-air missiles. All right, I request Dr. Satoru Nagao to join me back in the discussion here. He's a fellow at the Hudson Institute in Japan. Thank you, Dr. Nagao, for continuing to stay with us. What really do you think is going to be the key objective of the next 5-year plan when the Congress meets?
In case of North Korea rely on the military power for their presence, so that's why they're focusing on and now developing variety of the missiles. And especially the ballistic missile and the cruise missile is, of course, this is a threat for the other country. But at the same time, the purpose of the ballistic missile and the cruise missile is different. Ballistic missiles not. This is a big impact, but at the same time, not precision. So that's why to attack the cities or to attack the big target like cities, this is useful. But in case of the cruise missile is slow to reach, so that's why this is not good for the long-term distance. But at the same time, cruise missile is precision attack is possible, such missile which can precision attack. So that's why the tactical target, this cruise missile is better than the ballistic missile. So that's why, for example, if the North Korea need to attack the U.S. naval fleet, of course the ballistic missile is useful, but the cruise missile is more better one. So that's why the cruise missile they are developing. The view from the range, the current ballistic missile range is enough to reach some part of the United States, but number is not enough. So mainly the North Korea's target is Japan and South Korea just now. But in the near future, North Korea is aiming to develop ballistic missile capability to attack the mainland of the United States. And this is pressure for the United States. If the number is enough, which is can penetrate the defense system of the United States, it will be the big threat against the United States. In this case, the U.S. hesitated to intervene in the situation in the Korean Peninsula. That is concerning for the regional country like Japan and South Korea. And in case of the cruise missile, the cruise missile can launch from the North Korea. The land base is possible, but at the same time, naval ship can launch too. So that's why against the U.S. aircraft carrier battle group or the tactical target in the South Korea, indeed the cruise missile is very useful. Between the mountain and the mountains, they can fly and penetrate the defense line of the South Korea and reach the target. So that's why this is a big threat. And now the North Korea received technical support from Russia and developing this cruise missile very fast pace. So it will be a very strong deterrent power, or more than deterrent, indeed offensive power against South Korea. And that is a threat. And not only the South Korea, but also Japan is feeling the big threat from this cruise missile development, along with the ballistic missile development. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for staying with me and for your explanation there. And with that, viewers, unfortunately, that's all the time that I have. But thank you for staying tuned to NewsX World for all international news and updates.